You've got to be pretty vigilant when you're dealing with this stuff. It may sound like a headache to a lot of you, and I'm really sorry. Being your own bank is no easy feat. It is a lot of responsibility, but the upside of that is you get complete financial sovereignty. You get complete control over your money and over your data.
Blockchain, Bitcoin, Ethereum, altcoins, privacy coins, mining, distributed ledger, KYC. If all of these terms just start to make your head spin, don't worry, because you're not alone. And that's why I'm really excited that today we get to talk with Naomi Brockwell. She is a tech journalist and the host of NBTV. She's got a great YouTube channel that I highly recommend you go and subscribe to right now. And throughout this interview, she does an amazing job of taking very complex subjects and breaking them down into things that we can easily understand. So whether you're a novice in the blockchain Bitcoin game, or you feel like you know a little bit, but you're still hesitant to jump in, this interview is going to be great at giving you the confidence to take that next step. Now, here's the deal. It's a long interview. I recognize that. I highly recommend you watch the whole thing. You will get so much out of it. But if you're short on time, you can go into the description or into the different chapters of this video to jump to a specific question. Also, she offers a lot of great recommendations, and I have some of my own. So if you want, I've compiled that all into a cheat sheet that you can download completely free if you go to allthingssecured.com/crypto guide. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into the interview. Well, you know, there are a number of people that are probably watching this from a lot of different spectrums, people who are familiar with blockchain and Bitcoin and Ethereum and all these, and people who aren't. For those who aren't, can you just give us a quick explanation, as if you were talking to my mother or your mother, about how you would describe Bitcoin, blockchain, and all this stuff?
Sure. Well, it's a complete revolution in terms of money. You can think of it on a basic level as money for the internet. It's money that you can use to buy things digitally across the internet, makes it super easy. But really the revolution behind this is that it's decentralized and it can't be shut down. It can't be censored. So we've figured out how to have an alternative money that can't be shut down by government, which is really interesting. And it started out with these cypherpunks figuring out, how do we get money that can't be shut down, that can't be censored? Because we realize, money is kind of this linchpin in society, and whoever controls the money supply controls everything, right? And if you stop the flow of money, you can stop who gets, donations that are allowed to be sent to them, and, whether or not you can send money to your family in another country. Like all of this, you're basically asking permission to access your own funds. The cypherpunks tried for years to figure out how to have a money that couldn't be controlled. Lots of alternative monies were created over the years, and lots of digital monies were created over the years, and they were all shut down, or they all failed in some way, until Bitcoin came along. Because it's decentralized, it couldn't be shut down, and it just created this explosion. And from there, you've had all kinds of other cryptocurrencies evolve. And not just cryptocurrencies, but digital assets that are completely redefining how we understand digital assets. Without going into the weeds, you'll basically look at this spectrum of digital goods where all of these things are trying to be completely unique and different assets. They're not just trying to be like a different type of currency. They're trying to optimize for a certain thing, whether it's privacy or whether it's speed or whether it's, having smart contracts based on top of it. Like, it's really exciting what's going on out there.
Exactly. I think it's amazing. And honestly, it's so hard to keep up with everything. That's one of the things that I've had a difficult time with, is just trying to keep up with this technology that seems to be continually changing and growing, and new fintech that's just popping up all the time. How in the world do you keep up with all that?
Oh gosh, with great difficulty. I mean, I've been in this space. I've been doing videos about crypto since 2013 and got into it prior to that. And I found out in the early days when, I had it in my mind. I'd go around New York and interview all of the companies that were based in New York. And even at that stage, I was like, whoa, there are way too many things going on for me to update everyone. And then come 2021, it's ridiculous. I do a live show every day for CoinDesk TV, and we're talking about all of the things that are popping up, and we can't keep up with this stuff, and no one can. And that's what's most exciting. There's so much innovation. It's moving at breakneck speed, and that is really, really cool to see.
Yeah. Well, so you've got something, like you said, that is digital, and I think that's what really scares people the most that I talk with, because unlike, a dollar bill, or unlike a bar of gold, if anybody actually has a bar of gold, you can't shove that under your bed. You can't hide that into, a safe that's in your closet. And so there are obviously a lot of natural security fears around blockchain. What would you say? Would you say that blockchain and these type of coins are more secure, or just as secure, or less secure than fungible money, or money that you can actually carry around and put in your wallet?
Well, anything that has ever been connected to the internet, you should presume is not secure. And I'm sure you tell your audience that in every single episode. You should just presume that everything has been compromised. But that doesn't mean that it's all completely out in the open and you're going to get hacked very easily. And there are lots of things you can do to protect yourselves. I mean, it all comes down to your threat model, who you're being targeted by. If you're being targeted by a nation state, you're going to have to do a lot more to protect yourself than if you're just, Joe Mill, who's, trading in cryptocurrency, who's not having the resources of a project like Pegasus, coming after you. So for the average person, there are a lot of different ways you can protect yourselves. For example, there are different types of wallets. There are wallets that are online. There are wallets that are offline. They're called hot wallets versus cold wallets. If you have your money in a cold wallet, it's going to be a lot more secure than having your money in a hot wallet. All of the hacks that you hear about from exchanges, they all happen with the hot wallet, and the cold wallet funds are generally all secure. So it's just about figuring out, the best way to store your crypto. And it also depends who you're worried about, right? Because when I put my money in a bank account, I'm literally trusting the bank to let me access my funds at a future date, right? And that's not always trustworthy. You see what happened in Cyprus, I think it was like 2014, when citizens woke up and some citizens found like 60% of their savings had disappeared, right? So if part of your threat model is the actual banking system, and then definitely crypto is a lot more secure. And if part of your threat model is central banks, they're printing unprecedented amounts of money right now. We're going through a whole bunch of inflation. We keep surpassing their inflation targets. If you are worried about your money being inflated away, crypto is a lot safer as well. So you've got to pinpoint what your risk is. And if you're just talking about like actual security on the internet, it's digital, is it going to be hacked? There are definitely things you can do to protect yourself.
Okay. Well, let's start from the very beginning. Let's say somebody is not into crypto right now and they want to find at least the most secure, most trustworthy way that they can get into crypto. Obviously, there are exchanges. Like, how would you recommend somebody going about doing that?
Again, we've got to talk about their threat model. When you say trustworthy way to get involved, you have people who don't trust, big exchanges. They don't trust anyone that resembles a bank. There are a lot of people like that in crypto. They just kind of had it with all of these bailouts and, all of this kind of corruption. And so they see a lot of these institutions and centralized institutions as being a risk factor. They don't want to be KYC'd because they see the government as a risk factor. So you've got to kind of pinpoint exactly what you're looking for. So I'll give you some options. I personally think for beginners, one of the biggest danger areas or vulnerabilities is going to be yourself. You're your own worst enemy. If you think about just general password protection, people are generally terrible at this sort of stuff. They're generally putting post-it notes next to their computer. Like, I think that a lot of the time you are going to hurt yourself if you try to say like, well, I want the most robust, I want it foolproof. I want to have complete control of this. No one else to be able to access this, all of that. And so they do it all themselves, and it turns out they're just very bad at security. So for a beginner who's learning about this, I think one of these centralized custodial institutions is probably your best bet. So there are lots of exchanges out there. There's like, the Coinbases and the Binances and the Krakens of the world. And what they are, you can think of them kind of like crypto banks, where you can use your credit card, you can use ACH payments, you can use wire transfers, you can use all kinds of methods to get your fiat money into there. You transfer it into crypto, and you can either keep it on the exchange or pull it out. I think a lot of those methods are pretty simple. I would say like the Coinbases are, from my experience, they have the simplest user experience. It really is just a matter of clicking a button that says buy. How much do you want to buy? Input a number and you're golden. As you start to get more familiar with this world, I would recommend you start to learn how to store your own crypto, because that's really what crypto is all about. That uncensorability, that not having to ask the middlemen for permission to use your own funds, having it on hand. The same way that, you don't have to ask anyone permission when you use cash in your wallet. I love that. I love that. So if you really want to get that cash experience from crypto, then you should store it by yourself. And if you're looking at those options, there are different kinds of wallets you can use. A lot of these wallets, you can buy the crypto within the wallet itself. So you have things like Edge Wallet, which is a multi-coin wallet that you could use, and you can just purchase crypto within that wallet. I don't know if you want to go into like diving deep into wallets just yet, but in terms of purchasing, there are lots of really easy on-ramps. One thing I will say that I don't recommend right now, PayPal and Robinhood have both gotten into the crypto space. You've probably seen their names being thrown around in headlines. They're supporting crypto. There's not much you can do with the crypto if you buy on these platforms. They're not intending this crypto to be for use. So PayPal, you can go in there, you can purchase it, it sits on your app, you can't send it to anyone, you can't withdraw it, you can't put it in a different wallet, it just sits in your PayPal account until you want to sell it, and then you sell it. So it's like you never really had the Bitcoin to begin with. The same thing with Robinhood. Now, both of them have said at a future date they will allow you to use it and transfer it off their wallet and all of that. They're not there yet, so I wouldn't recommend you use those services. I would recommend that if you're going to use a centralized service, make sure that it's one where you can actually withdraw your funds. So, Coinbase is great, Kraken is great, or use one of these in-app wallets that make it super easy to transfer money. So things like Edge Wallet, where you just do it within the app.
That's great. Anybody who's followed crypto for any period of time, like it's still etched in my memory what happened with Mt. Gox, gosh, many years back. And so that kind of like, if you watched that happen, it obviously your trust in the system kind of just goes down slightly as you're thinking about all that stuff. I'm curious for these exchanges. Is it similar to a bank where, I give a bank my money and they tell me what my balance is, but in reality, they're only keeping like 10% of that in cash in the bank, where they're loaning out, pretty much all of it. Is it similar to that in an exchange? Or if I have my money in an exchange, a crypto exchange, and I've got, 10 Bitcoin or 1 Bitcoin or whatever, is that Bitcoin actually in a wallet that they're holding, or is it just kind of floating around somewhere?
Right. That's a great question. So first of all, how an exchange deals with your money depends on the laws in that area. So different, states have laws against rehypothecation of funds. So, some places you might find that they're not doing any sort of fractional reserve there. One thing that differentiates the crypto world from the traditional finance world is FDIC insurance, especially for US centric things, and other countries have, similar insurance programs. So you will find that places like Coinbase have FDIC insurance for your fiat value that you're storing on the exchange, but they're not insuring your crypto balance. Now, some people will say that all that means that the fiat balance is more secure. I take a lot of issue with that. I think that FDIC insurance kind of creates this moral hazard. It says that, if you guys lend out way too much money than you actually have and you're only keeping a fraction of it, banks are going to do that, and it's like a tiny amount that they're required to have. Now, if there was a bank run, who's going to bail them out? Like FDIC insurance, and who bails out FDIC? Who funds that? Was the taxpayer. So at the end of the day, you're kind of spreading around this risk, and the banks get to benefit from lending out all that money. So I wouldn't necessarily say that FDIC insurance is something that's going to make things safer. Now, there are banks that I would trust more than others. There are exchanges that I would trust more than others in terms of what they're keeping on hand. There are banks exchanges that are undergone audits to see like how much is fractional reserve, how much is not, and there's increasing regulation around that as well. I would say the Mt. Gox issue, it's kind of like this pillar in the crypto history that we all look to because we all remember it. And it's not the last exchange that's going to get hacked, right? This is going to keep happening. I think one thing that the first lesson for people getting into crypto, I would say, is you need to understand that you are undertaking a giant adventure where you are becoming your own bank and you are taking responsibility for your own money. And that includes really researching the companies that you're using to conduct transfers, the wallets that you're using to store your crypto. It's all about doing a lot of research. And if you're not ready for that, that's fine. You know, maybe the traditional financial system is going to be better for you. But if you're taking on the responsibility of being your own bank, you really do have to dig into the reputations of a lot of these people and make sure you understand where you're putting your money, because although this place is rife with innovation and really exciting stuff, it's also filled with scam artists as well, and you've got to learn the difference before you start putting your money into it.
Yeah, you know, you're mentioning exchanges that you can trust and doing research. If I'm doing that, what exactly am I looking for, and who would I trust to tell me that, you know, this exchange is good or this exchange isn't good?
Again, it's such a good question. You can look at the history of the exchange and how they've dealt with things in the past. So Binance, for example, they've had hacks, and then they created this fund called the Seifu Fund, which was this... I love the word Seifu Fund. It was when CZ, he was talking about the funds and, you know, funds are Seifu, and it kind of became this meme. So they actually created their own insurance policy. And I really enjoyed that. The government never came in and said, you must do this to safeguard user funds. It was just them saying, hey, if we want to provide a good product people can trust, they need to know that there's going to be backup money there if we ever get hacked. So they set up this Seifu Fund. You have other exchanges that have done the same thing. So, you know, you're not going to stop hacks. It's going to happen. Like, these exchanges try really hard with security, but ultimately, you know, when you're dealing with software, there's going to be bugs. People are going to figure them out. They're going to exploit them. But what you can look at is how they deal with that loss of funds, whether the consumer ends up bearing the brunt of that or whether they have their own policies in place that safeguard it. So that's something that I'd look at, and just how they've treated these things in the past. If it's some shady exchange and they've only been around for a year and they're saying, oh, we're going to give you 20% returns on all the money you put with us, maybe take pause. There are things that are too good to be true. And so you've had a lot of rug pulls as well, people putting their money in these things and then they just disappear. So if you find exchanges that have had hacks but the consumer has been fine at the end of the day, they haven't lost any money, they're the types of places where I would trust, you know, to facilitate exchanges. But if you don't want to trust anyone, there are decentralized ways to access money as well. There are more cumbersome. There are always trade-offs when you have these things. It's going to be a lot less convenient. Things like BISC, where you can, you know, send gift cards in exchange for crypto. They kind of have this interesting moderation system where you have third-party arbiters who figure out if exchanges have taken place. Like, it's really exciting, evolving ways to get into crypto. And there are also things called Satoshi Square meetups. These have been going on since like the day one of crypto, where you can go in person and do exchanges. But again, it's a risk. If you're carrying a lot of cash on you, be aware of your surroundings and make sure you know what you're doing and that you have protections in place. So a lot of different things to factor in.
Yeah, feels like the difference between shopping at Amazon and doing a Craigslist exchange in a seedy, you know, parking lot behind a Walmart or something.
Yeah, it's a perfect analogy. It is. Like Craigslist, you might get a better deal. You might feel like it's more peer-to-peer. But at the end of the day, like, Amazon has a return policy. So, but do we trust Amazon? Probably not. But like, you got to choose which trade-off you want to make.
Exactly. All right, so we've talked a little bit about exchanges. I want to move on, if you don't mind, to what you mentioned. We've got cold storage, and cold storage being something that is off an exchange, or really, I guess, off the internet altogether. I've set one of those up. Actually, I've set two now. And I've got to say, it is probably one of the freakiest things to do, to like put something on there and just realize, oh my gosh, if I lose it feels like if I could lose this device, it's all gone. So
a couple of things there. you should never have a crypto wallet without backing it up. Now, backing it up basically means that you're taking this seed phrase or this private key and you're creating a backup copy. What does that backup copy look like? Whatever you want. You can write it on a piece of paper. If you do that, be aware that maybe that gets destroyed in a flood or a fire. Maybe you etch it into metal. There are a lot of key keepers, they're called, where you can etch that in so that if like there's a fire or a flood, it's fine. Maybe you just have it on 2 different devices. You store them at different locations, physical locations, so that if some natural disaster hits, perhaps it's not affected, but you should always have a backup. Now, cold wallets are fantastic because you can kind of set them up and they're like little devices. Some of them look like thumb drives, USB thumb drives, and some of them like just other little devices, like all kinds of different shapes, tiny little things. But you plug them into your computer. You basically use an interface in a web browser, but all of the things you put in never connect to the internet. So like what I mean is when you put in your PIN, you're not ever doing something that could be logged by a keylogger, for example. And so there's this extra layer of security that happens. There are lots of really great hardware wallets out there. And then you unplug it from your computer, and then that's no longer live, on the internet. And so it's a lot harder to get access to these things. So if you are going to use one of those things, absolutely back it up. Make sure you have that privacy, that seed phrase written down somewhere.
Yeah. Well, the ledger is it's a public ledger, right? So whenever I purchase any type of crypto, whether that's Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, whatever, and whenever there is any sort of exchange made, it's made publicly, or at least it can be looked at on the ledger that is all over the world. How is that not a privacy risk? And what would you say to those people who, I've had somebody ask, hey, if this is public and somebody can see, wouldn't they be able to see how much I have and what I'm spending on and all this stuff if that ledger is public?
That is a huge issue, and anyone who says otherwise is completely naive about this system. So the first person to ever receive Bitcoin was Hal Finney. And the first tweet he wrote was running Bitcoin. And the second tweet he wrote was, how do we get privacy into Bitcoin? Because obviously anyone who's concerned about this stuff is going to look at this pseudonymous nature of Bitcoin. Now, you don't have to KYC, you don't have to add your social security number to access this, you don't have to provide a driver's license, but it is pseudonymous, meaning that this pseudonymous link is fragile and is only as good as the safeguards you put in place to secure that. So for example, if I go to a coffee shop and I spend my cryptocurrency there, and then they look at where the cryptocurrency came from, they're like, oh, Naomi has $5,000 in that account. That's not great. You don't want your barista knowing how much money is in your bank account. So that is a huge issue. I wish that Bitcoin were more private. Snowden has talked at length about this, about how what's taking so long. We need this at the base layer. Now, because it's been so difficult to kind of get these privacy elements into Bitcoin, people are looking at different layer 2 solutions, but it's really not pervasive. Other things have come up to take its place. So first of all, there are things called coin mixers. With Bitcoin, it's difficult because every transaction you make in Bitcoin, basically a coin mixer is something that, there are different types of mixers. So some of them just puts everything into a fun pool and then sends it all out. So we'll just look at those. If you're getting a bunch of different transactions and putting them all together and then setting them out, it's going to be difficult to see where those transactions came from. But every time you do a single mix, your privacy is only as good as the anonymity set, which is how many other people you're mixing with at that time. And if there's only a few, then you want to mix several times, and transaction fees in Bitcoin are really high. So I would say that to mix for cryptocurrency, it's only really beneficial for things like Bitcoin Cash. Dash has kind of a built-in mixer, which is really awesome. You've got like Tornado Cash. You've got all kinds of different elements across different tools across different cryptocurrency ecosystems that help. Now, apart from mixers, Privacy coins. I mean, the gold standard in privacy, I think, is Zcash. It's called, it uses something called a zero knowledge proof. So rather than proving that this money came from there because you can see it all on the blockchain, what it does is it kind of like hashes it and somehow proves, without providing any of that information, that all that stuff happened. It proves all of that mathematically. So what goes onto the blockchain is none of your information. You have no idea where that money came from. You have no idea how much that money was. Like it's a black box that you're basically putting your money into and then you take it out again. And there's no way of verifying where that came from. So if you're interested in privacy, you're looking into getting into cryptocurrencies, highly recommend looking at different privacy coins. Zcash is my favorite, but there are other ones out there. Monero is very popular, especially on the dark web. You've got things like Firo, you've got even Signal right now. I'm really excited with their pilot program they've launched in the UK. So the private messaging app Signal, which I'm a huge fan of, big fan of Moxie as well. He's like seems like a really principled guy, and I appreciate all the things he's done for privacy. Now they're exploring how to get private payments normalized within private messaging apps. I love that because the alternative is Facebook and their DM stablecoin, right? Now, I love the idea of alternative currencies. So yeah, this is better than just like using the US dollar through, Facebook Pay or whatever. But I hate the idea that Facebook might set the standard for what in-app, in-messaging app payments will look like, because it's all going to be completely tracked. It's going to be, all KYC. You're going to be giving away so much data, and they're notorious for collecting all your data. And now they're going to have your financial data. Like, that terrifies me. So I love the idea that Signal is exploring payment and privacy options in app, and they've developed something, or they're partnered with a group that's developed something called Mobile Coin, which they've said that they will add other privacy coins later on, but just that it's at the moment the technology isn't quite there yet for the fast, seamless payments that they're after. So they're doing Mobile Coin in the meantime, and will eventually add other options. But I'm a big fan of what they're doing, because if they can set the standard and kind of normalize the idea of privacy and say, yes, your financial privacy is important, I think that's awesome.
It reminds me, I used to live in China, and I don't know how familiar you are with China and their financial system, but the bedrock of the financial system now, nobody uses cash, nobody uses credit cards, everybody uses WeChat and Alipay, which is essentially what you're talking about, it's the Facebook of and the WhatsApp of China, and they were able to, in the early days, really get their dig their feet in and figure out how to do this financial transactions back and forth. So I just scan a QR code and payments made, and everything is tracked. And because it's China, there's a backdoor for the government. So everything you do, it's known. And I think that's the fear for everybody that is, around the rest of the world, is looking at that as the standard and going, I'm not sure I want that for my financial, transactions, that everything is tracked and everything is known. I would prefer to have more privacy in that regard.
Yeah, no, 100% agree. I think that privacy is first and foremost. And that's why I love privacy coins. I think going forward, they're not going to be called privacy coins. I think consumers are going to start to demand that you have privacy elements introduced into all of the cryptocurrencies. And you already have teams implementing that. They're taking things like ZK Snarks, which is what the Zcash protocol uses. They're saying, okay, well, we'll do ZK rollups, and we'll figure out how to add that on top of Ethereum. Or, I know that Litecoin is implementing something that another privacy coin invented, Grin, and so they're kind of adding that as a layer too. So I think as consumers, we're just going to start demanding privacy in all of this, because it is becoming more important to people. They're starting to realize how valuable their data is. They're starting to realize what happens when companies or governments exploit that data, and how vulnerable it makes you as an individual. I think people are just trying to reclaim some control in their lives.
How early are we in this whole process? Is it too late for somebody to jump in? I mean, Bitcoin and blockchain have been around for more than a decade, and is this still something where it's only for the early adopters? Are we in kind of the top of the bell curve, or are we, hey, this has been going on. If you're not on already, you're late to the party?
Well, the genie's out of the bottle. It's not going anywhere. This is here. And because it's decentralized, it doesn't even matter if governments around the world start to try to ban it because, we all know how to use a VPN. We can all access this stuff. And we do. And so even if, you saw China recently shut down all the mining in the country. So it just moved elsewhere, right? And as long as there is no consolidation amongst every single country in the world saying we all agree, we will all ban it. When have we ever had that? As if China's going to agree with the US, is going to agree with Afghanistan, is going to agree with Russia. It's just not going to happen. So we're always going to have options with this stuff. And so it's not going anywhere. Now, whether or not you want to get involved, I'm not going to give you investment advice. I'm not going to talk about number go up. If you're wondering whether you're going to make a lot of money getting into this, I have no idea. All I know is that I no longer want my purchases to be tracked. I no longer want to keep adding to that database that the NSA has that's just filled with data on me, where they're creating this permanent record, this profile on me and all of my internet choices, all my digital choices. I'm just fed up with that. And I think we deserve better as a society. And luckily there are smart people out there who are handing us these amazing tools on a silver platter and saying it doesn't have to be this way. You don't have to ask permission to access your own money. You don't have to swipe something that collects all of your data. Most of my transactions day to day, I use cryptocurrency. I go to the coffee shop, I spend cryptocurrency. I live in an area where it's accepted a lot of places, but it didn't used to be. And all it took was you going in and saying, hey, do you accept crypto? Are you willing to accept crypto? You want me to help you set it up? And now there are, dozens and dozens and dozens of places. And even if no one local to you accepts it, there are so many intermediaries now where you can use your crypto. You can just live on crypto and they can accept whatever currency they want. And, you don't even have to convince them to accept it. So things like Bitrefill or Purse.io or Dash Direct, these are all services where you can basically buy things from any major chain using crypto these days. So it's possible to live your entire life without feeding into this this financial infrastructure that's collecting all of your data and trying to control your financial choices. You can just say no these days.
Wow. You're spouting off. I mean, it's great. You've got all these different brands and softwares and things, and I'm going to have to go back and look up half of them because I haven't heard of some of them.
Well, let me give you a
Yeah.
couple of things about these. So a lot of people don't realize because they're like, the big red flag that people put up when they're like, cryptocurrency, why would I spend my crypto if I think it's going up? You just bought a coffee and now it's worth $100. That's the dumbest thing you've ever done. And well, first of all, they don't realize that it's only dumb if you're holding a bunch of your money in fiat, right? Like a lot of my friends, they're all in crypto. They've gotten rid of all their savings. They don't want a money that's being inflated away where they're losing a tremendous amount of value. And so they're all in crypto. So yeah, that's the money they have. Why would you hold on to fiat longer than you have to is their mentality. So there's that side of things. But a lot of people also don't realize that when you're spending crypto day to day at these things, they're usually huge discounts. So Purse.io is a platform where you can spend either Bitcoin Cash or Bitcoin and you can buy anything off Amazon. It works specifically with Amazon and you can get up to, I think it's 33% off every purchase. That's a huge amount of money that you're saving right there. And the reason being is that you have people who want to get involved with crypto. They want to buy it. And depending on how eager they are to get crypto, it will depend on how much of a discount they're willing to take. So I buy all my stuff on Amazon through Purse.io, and I get a discount anywhere between 5% to 33% on everything. Dash Direct is a similar service where you can buy all kinds of major brands, like any major brand. I think there's like 550,000 retailers that accept this. And essentially you're just like buying at the checkout, sending your Dash, and then behind the scenes, you're basically given a gift card, but it's in the exact amount for whatever purchase you're making. So you want to buy a hamburger that's like $6 and you send your Dash, from your all intents and purposes, from your perspective, you're just spending your Dash on this. And again, you can get all kinds of discounts, I think up to 15% by doing this. That's a huge savings right there. Bitrefill is another one. Like if you use Lightning, then they give you, I think it's 10% back. All kinds of tools out there that you should explore if you're looking to save money, because it's not just about the privacy. It's also just about like, well, how do I safeguard my wealth?
Yeah. I think there's something ironic in deciding that you don't want to spend your cryptocurrency because it might go up while you're simultaneously holding fiat currency that every day.
I'm glad you see the hypocrisy there. A lot of people don't, and they will often chastise those of us who are like, why are you spending your crypto? It's like, why are you holding fiat?
Exactly. All right, one last question for you. I've heard a number of people ask me, hey, is it safer? Should I be using other softwares like a VPN or any other software that you know of as I'm dealing with crypto? Or I had one person ask me, should I set up a separate machine altogether, that's the machine that only gets used for cryptocurrency purchases, trading, all that stuff? Is there validity to any of those ideas? What would you say to any of that?
Cool. So many topics that you just covered to dig into, and it gets pretty into the weeds. Let's start with VPNs. So sure, there is some layer of privacy that you're adding if you're using a VPN, but again, it depends on what your threat model is, right? So if you're just using a VPN because you want to circumvent, jurisdictional regulations about which exchanges you can access, a lot of people use VPNs. I'm not saying I encourage you to do something illegal. I'm just saying the state of play is a lot of people are using VPNs because it does provide enough privacy to their location that they can access a lot of these international tools. Now, what about if you're doing like all kinds of illegal money laundering and drug deals and whatnot? Should you use a VPN? You're going to get caught, right? VPNs are not a privacy tool. They are a tool that can help obfuscate your IP address. The VPN company has access to every single thing you're doing. If they get a subpoena, they're going to hand over all of that information. If they realize what you're doing, they're probably going to turn you in pretty quick. So, in terms of like what you're doing with your cryptocurrency, if you're just an everyday person who's looking for added privacy, it really depends on, like, are you on a public network? Like, obviously, always use a VPN. Are you just on your home computer? I don't see much of an added benefit for that unless, again, your IP address dictates which services you can and can't participate in. And so you'll have to make that judgment call yourself. If you're talking about individual devices, I actually think that's a great idea because our devices, there's so much tracking that goes on with our devices, right? When we buy a computer or we have a phone and we have this MAC address that is just being broadcast out, and we have all these unique identifiers and all these cookies that are stored in our browser and all of this stuff. There's so many ways that the different websites we visit track us and monitor us. So if you are looking for more privacy in your financial transactions, I think that having a separate device is a good idea. But also on a security note, if you're connecting, like my day-to-day work is connecting with people in live video chats or on shows or like sitting there researching things on the internet, every single website you visit, that's a potential vulnerability there. And we have to be aware of that in this digital age, that when you're connected to the internet, it's pretty easy to hack you. So if you want to lessen that, I would recommend you have your stuff on a different device that you're not using for everyday things, where you won't just accidentally click on a bad link and suddenly get everything siphoned away. Now, it is important to keep in mind there are things like Tor out there, and a lot of people would presume, well, obviously that's going to be the best tool. I'll immediately use Tor every time I use an exchange. Actually, you might not want to do that. Because there was, I think it was in May, there's this hacker group that had over 50% of exit nodes. They had commandeered them. And what they were doing was they were specifically targeting people who were using crypto exchanges, and then they were swapping out addresses and siphoning a whole bunch of crypto from users. So just be aware of things like that. Be aware that you can be redirected. Make sure when you're looking at a URL, it's the exact URL. Make sure it's always HTTPS and never unencrypted. You've got to be pretty vigilant when you're dealing with this stuff. It may sound like a headache to a lot of you, and I'm really sorry. And I will, again, just say, being your own bank is no easy feat. It is a lot of responsibility, but the upside of that is you get complete financial sovereignty. You get complete control over your money and over your data. And if you're someone who wants to claim back your data and claim back your money, then it's absolutely worth the hassle from my perspective. But ease in slowly and make sure you kind of factoring in all of these risks, because there's a lot to wrap your head around.
Yeah, what a great way to say that. And I think that's a great, I mean, just right what you said, where yes, it's a great thing to really dip your toe in, but you really need to understand what you're doing. So as we're closing up, Naomi, can you share, and I'd love to, your website, all this, what resources would you recommend for somebody that is wanting to dip their toe in, that is wanting to learn more, or even just wanting to go even to that next level? Where would you point them to?
Oh gosh. Well, I'll tell you my channel. So if you go to nbtv.media and you'll get to my website, you can see all my videos there. Or on YouTube, it's just Naomi Brockwell TV. On Odyssey, it's just Naomi Brockwell. So you can find all my videos, which are basic guides for beginners to help you get into the space. Then there's CoinDesk TV. I do a live show with them every day where we talk about what's going on in the broader world, like exciting things going on. What's going on with NFTs and all kinds of exciting decentralized projects. So that's just CoinDesk TV. You can check out them. They're always a great resource. There are a lot of YouTube channels that I love out there that delve into this. I would say blockchain tips. So Heidi Chakos is fantastic. I recommend her stuff. She really delves into this world from a perspective of financial sovereignty. CryptoLark has some great content out there. One of my favorites, The Desert Links. So he has I think it's called Digital Cash Network. He has a YouTube channel where he's literally talking about how to use this every day. He's saying, get rid of your bank account. If you want practical tools for every day, follow his content. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, lots of stuff out there. Just dig around. If you have any questions, feel free to send me a message and I'm happy to help anytime.
I hope you enjoyed that interview with Naomi Brockwell. She was just a wealth of information. And like I said at the beginning, if you want kind of that cheat sheet, taking all of these different recommendations that she's mentioned and some of my own, you can go to allthingssecure.com/crypto guide and download that PDF for free. As always, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to All Things Secured for more great privacy and security content here on YouTube.